All right. Good evening. I know you don't usually say good evening on Tisha B'Av, but I don't know how else not to greet you. There's a minhag not to say hello on Tisha B'Av, but Mori Harav, Harini Kapad Mishkaba would say there are better minhagim to worry about than this minhag. All the minhagim you could think about in the world, it doesn't have to be the one where you're not nice to people. Let me first tell you that I miss everybody tremendously, and that being here, as much as it may feel special to be in Israel, it's not the same being without you. So I miss you very much, and I'm grateful that you've waited for me on Zoom for this opportunity. And thank you to everybody for being in the Beit Knesset tonight, for my father, for those who helped lead the Tefillah, the School Mitzvot. And may we merit very soon to see B'nachmat Zion in the comfort of Zion, B'ezrat Hashem.
Amen.
You know, I was at the Kotel last night, and I sent a few videos out, not everything. But for me, the Kotel is where it all began. It's where I first recognized the need to go to Har HaBayit. I remember telling you that in 2017, I was sitting there on the ground of the Kotel with, I can't tell you, 30, 40,000 people. It's something not normal, the numbers that are in Israel at the Kotel at this time. And to think about the fact that there's so many of us, and the only thing that is separating between us and Har Beit Hashem, the mountain of God, are 12, 15 police officers. I mean, how many Jews can you hold back? And I remember thinking, next time, I don't want to sit on the floor. I want to be able to go up to Har HaBayit. And that was when I made the decision after all of those years to make it to the mountain of Hashem. Today, I'm not actually going to Har HaBayit. There are thousands of people that are waiting to get onto the mountain. And that's really a complicated reality with I'm not so good at fasting and standing in the sun. If you want to talk about Sinat Chinam, the Kotel Foundation's chief rabbi took away all of the umbrellas, the shade for the people that are standing waiting for Har HaBayit so that they won't wait there to go up to the mountain.
What?
And I can't do it. I don't want to risk my health or my fast for that. So I'm letting the thousands of other people going in my stead. When I think about what was that point, what actually made that difference of going and not going, it was a shift in a reality that I always had, but it's something I want to share with you today in some concrete terms. And I'm not going to keep you here for the whole night, just a few ideas that came inside of me here in Yerushalayim. I was speaking at Har HaPeretz at Askara last week, and I was in the middle of my speech, and I mentioned that the Beit Mikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, because of what we call baseless hatred. The Rabbanit is prone to explain this not as baseless hatred, because I always have a reason why I hate somebody. I never hate somebody for no reason. Just usually, my reason is not good enough for the hatred that I'm showing them. I try to explain to my children Sinat Chinam in different ways. Rabbanit gave an example. Let's say somebody gets a phone call from the school. The teacher beat up their child at school. Why on earth did the teacher do that? Because they spoke without raising their hand. What kind of crazy teacher is that? No, what kind of crazy teacher beat up a child anyways? But there was nothing violent happening. The punishment wasn't comparable to the crime that was committed. Sinat Chinam is my reason for hating somebody is not actually a good one. It's not one that's worthy of all the hatred that I'm putting into it. And when I mentioned that, somebody raised their hand and said, "No, Rabbi, you're not correct. The Talmud says the Beit Mikdash was destroyed because of baseless hatred. But there are other opinions of the Talmud. And you can't blame the Jewish people for the destruction of the Beit Mikdash." I thought it was a very interesting observation, because he wasn't the only person in the room who felt that way. Whereas for years, all of us know the Beit Mikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. How could it be there are so many people in the audience who think, well, the Jewish people aren't responsible for what happened in the first place? That's why last night already was Tisha B'Av. I began preparing my Agadot. I go through the different Agadot. Do you know which tractate of the Talmud most of the Agadot of the destruction of the temple are found in? There are a few in Masechet Shabbat. There are a few. But the Kamza, Bar Kamza, all of that, do you remember where that is?
Maybe.
It's all in Masechet Gittin. In the tractate that talks about divorce. And I don't have a proof that I'm right, but I don't think that the rabbis put the Agadot of the Chuban in Masechet Gitin for no reason. We are always referred to as Knesset Israel, the wife of the Jewish people. And the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash is as close to the Jewish people getting divorced, if not divorced, and separated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It makes sense to me that those Agadot are found there. And I went through the list of Agadot. I came up with the following, about 20 reasons for why the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Let me read some of them to you. The rabbi is saying in Masechet Yomah, מפני מה חרב מקדש ראשון? מפני ג' דברים שהיו בו, because of three things the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. עבודה זרה, גילוי עריות, ייחוד דמים, because of idol worship, because of foreign worship, let's say it better, because of forbidden sexual relationships, and because of murder. In Pirkei Avot, our rabbis told us, we read it not so long ago, Galut ba'al ha'olam, exile comes to the world. על עבודה זרה, ועל גילוי עריות, ועל שפיכות דמים, ועל שמיטת הארץ. It mentions a few other things into that list. Our famous Talmudic teaching in Masechet Yomah, מקדש שני מפני שנאת חינם שביניהם. That unlike the first temple, the second temple was destroyed because of שנאת חינם. תוספתא מנחות says something interesting. היו אוהבים את הממון, ושונאים אלו את אלו. They loved money, but they hated each other. So that sounds about right. That people love their money more than they love their fellow human beings. And this is something that you see a tremendous problem in the world. There are people who have, there are people who don't have, and the people who have, not just that they have, and they hate the people who don't have. This is a real reality that existed in the time of our Chuban. In Masechet Gitin, our rabbis tell us, "Charavai Yerushalayim al Kamza and Bar Kamza." Someone remember me the story of Kamza and Bar Kamza?
A rich person made a party, and he got two friends. One of them were called Kamza, one of them called Bar Kamza. And his servant made a mistake. Instead of inviting his friend Kamza, he invited his enemy, Bar Kamza. Bar Kamza showed up at the scene of the wedding, and immediately the person who threw the party said, "Well, what are you doing over here? Get out of it." He said, "I will pay you my meal, but please stay, don't embarrass me in public." He said, "I don't care." He said, "I pay you half the meal. Just let me stay." He said, "I don't want to stay. Get out of here." He said, "I pay you the whole meal on my expense. The whole wedding party, I pay for it." And refused. And therefore, he sent him out. That particular person told the Roman Empire, Jews are rebelling, and I will not tell the whole story if it's a Korban. Because of that, the Roman Empire came and said, kick him out. And he was upset, not because of kick him out, he was upset because the rabbis were there and nobody was objecting.
That's exactly the story, which is to find that Kamsa, Bar Kamsa, the story is the shame of a human being, the shame of another person. He's saying, "I'll pay for my seat, I'll pay for the wedding, I'll pay for it, just don't embarrass me." Later in the Talmud, a rabbi saying, look at what the consequence of shaming another human being. That Kadosh Baruch Hu is willing to let his Beit HaMikdash be destroyed because of the embarrassment someone else endured. My father said it correctly. The rabbis were all sitting there at this meal, and they saw this whole story go down. And they didn't get involved. Let's judge them favorably. They didn't get involved because they were afraid, or because they were big donors, or because they were on the board and they were afraid again, whatever reason they were afraid of them. But they were afraid, and they didn't speak up, and that was enough reason for Yerushalayim to be destroyed. The rabbis continue that Agadah, and they give another reason. They say, the reason wasn't really because of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, but ענוותנותו של רבי זכריה בן אבקולס החריבה את ביתנו. Rabbi Zechariah was the Chacham who, when the sacrifice came from the Roman Empire, he decided that it was forbidden to offer the sacrifice in the Beit HaMikdash. In Avot Rabbi Yonatan, our rabbis tell us the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed al bitul Torah galu Yisrael ma'arsam, because we neglected the study of Torah. The Jewish people were exiled out of their land. Masechet Shabbat, a rabbi say something. Mipnei machar rabbi Yerushalayim, why was Yerushalayim destroyed? Mipnei shebitel Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim v'arvit. Because we didn't say Kehillat Shema in the morning and the evening. What does that have to do with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash? These are all Agadot. And when you study Agadah, you have to understand them properly. But for right now, I'm reading them on a very superficial level. A rabbis in Masechet Nedarim mention, "Mipnei shelo birchu b'Torah techila," because they did not say the blessing of the Torah in the beginning. And that's an interesting sugya. What does that have to do with anything? At a different time, we'll talk about it. In Masechet Shabbat, a rabbi saying, "Mipnei machar rabbi Yerushalayim, why was Yerushalayim destroyed? Mipnei shechilelu b'at Shabbat," because they desecrated the Shabbat inside of Yerushalayim. From here, you see that Shemirat Shabbat is not just important, but especially in Yerushalayim, especially in Eretz Yisrael, that we see that there was a connection between Chilul Shabbat and the exile of the Jewish people. Both in Masechet Shabbat and in the Midrash Rabbah Necha, a rabbi say that it was the neglect of the education of our children that caused for the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed. Mipnei shebitlu b'tinokot shel Beit Rabban, because the children were held back from the study of Torah, which is something unique. You know that when the Beit HaMikdash is being rebuilt, everybody's obligated to go build the Beit HaMikdash except for children. Except for Tinokot Shel Beit Rabban. The children are obligated. Likely there's the connection here.
Question?
Yeah.
Oh, everything I hear is about one thing, like Bar Kamza, education of children, but there's always a chain of events that would lead to something like such a great destruction of a number of factors woven together rather than just one. And that's what's always confounding me about this.
Maharal of Prague, I remember saying that it's not just one of these things; it's all of these things. It's all of these
Right.
problems. The argument here is which one is the final hammer blow that actually caused the Beit HaMikdash? What's the straw that broke the camel's back? But at the end of the day, it's a multifaceted problem that exists in Am Yisrael, and we like to pick on whatever one is convenient for the topic of our conversation.
Got it.
And in that regard, the man who corrected me was correct. You're choosing Sinat Chinam, but there are other reasons. But not that the reason of Sinat Chinam is not true, just that this reason is one of them. A rabbi say because of judging based on the letter of the law, and only for the sake of the recording, I'm going to mute the other side of the screen. If you want to say something, just raise your hand. I'll unmute it. They followed the letter of the law. Now, this was used against me yesterday in the conversation that following halakha is dangerous because that's why Jerusalem was destroyed, because we followed halakha. It's not what our rabbis are telling us. It's not what they mean when they say this, but it's a nice way to use this text. In Masechet Shabbat, they compared the smaller person with the greater person. There was a mix-up in who society should place importance on. There was some kind of lack of shame that existed between people. And that you may remember the story of humiliation and betrayal. There's the carpenter. And so if you want to look at Masechet Gittin, page 58a, you could look it up. The Rambam has a fascinating introduction, a letter that he has to the Chachamim of Marseille. Oh, I see that I can't unmute you, so I have to ask. Okay. No, it's okay. It's stay. I leave it like that. It's good. Rabbi Rambam writes a letter to the Chachamim of Marseille, and he speaks about, in his opinion, the great problem that had to do with believing in astrology and the lack of scientific education in Am Yisrael. We spoke about this in the past, that when people believe in magic, they don't take responsibility for their actions. And Rabbi Rambam writes that this is what destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. It was magical thinking. It was the fact that the prophets came and said, if you don't fix your ways, the Beit HaMikdash will be destroyed. You will be exiled. And nah, as long as I pray for 40 days in a row with red strings tied to my ankle, whatever shit. As long as I say Shir HaShirim 13 times this way and that way, as long as I light Shabbat candles 5 minutes early, whatever magic they were believing in at that moment, they thought they can do that instead of doing the work of Tisha B'Av. And this, it says, is really what caused the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed. When I look at this whole list of things, in my mind, there's one common denominator between all of these things. There's no right answer, but let me ask you, what do you notice is the common denominator between all of these things? Some of them Ben Adam L'Chavero, but some of them are not, because just defending Shabbat is not Ben Adam L'Chavero. Missing Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim and Arvit is not Ben Adam L'Chavero. Anyone else?
Not taking your religion seriously.
Not taking your religion seriously. Okay, definitely there are problems in leadership. For sure, there are problems with leadership. Not taking religion seriously, that's definitely part of the list, but not everything on the list. Shame, not necessarily. Maybe shame is part of the religion. Okay, I'll take that answer. Anyone else? Anything else?
Not being truthful.
Okay, there are elements of here that have to do with emet also. Let me share with you my thought. You'll tell me if you think it's correct. See, when this person corrected me during the Darasha and he said, don't blame the Jewish people. It was because of Rabbi Zechariah that he was he wasn't correct in his halachic judgment and he caused the Beit HaMikdash to be destroyed. That's the part that bothered me. It's the part where a person says, I'm not responsible for my actions. Somebody else is responsible, but it's not me. I think every one of these teachings, every one of them highlights a flaw that is inside of the Jewish people that could have been fixed. Shaming people, you could fix that. Not saying Kriyat Shema in the morning or evening, you could fix that. Not keeping Shabbat, you can fix that. Following halakha in a problematic way, you can fix that. All of these things are things that human beings could have fixed. You see, so often we say, look, there's problems in the world. I want to fix the world, but I'm not in a position of power to fix the world. There's nothing I can do. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, no, there are things you can do. Maybe you can't fix all of those problems, but don't exempt yourself from personal responsibility because you have someone else to blame for the problems that exist in the world right now. Now, when I was sitting at the Kotel yesterday, I was sitting on the floor with Elchanan and Rabbi Noam, and then Yochanan came, it was also in Yerushalayim that we had together. I was talking to him, and Elchanan told me he's having a hard time crying. A lot of people are sitting on the floor, they're wailing and they're crying. In general, and I'm not doubting anyone's sincerity. So there's no doubting on my end of sincerity. But sometimes when you see people, especially in a very public forum, eliciting very public emotions that are very loud and very likely they're not crying for the reason you think they're crying. There's a lot of hurt and there's a lot of pain, and I'm not taking that away, but it might not have to do with the Beit HaMikdash. It could be with the problems at home, and it could be with things that happened in childhood, and it could be a lot of things, but rarely is it that. It's Elchanan, you don't have to cry if it's a fake cry. There's no point in sitting here on the floor. And if you're not feeling moved to cry, ask yourself, what are you really feeling inside? Why are you not crying? We had a wonderful conversation. It looks like a holiday in the Kotel. There's thousands of people here. We know. I'll tell you a story. We were sitting down on the ground. I was waiting for the Rabbani to finish in the ladies section. And we're sitting just like this. I was sitting. I was even a little more anonymous. I was wrapped up like this, and we were sitting in the corner by the mechita. And some guy I see looking at me and looking at me and looking at me. Finally says, Rabbi, am I allowed to say hello to you? Like I told you before, of all the things you should be strict about in the world, don't be strict about not saying hello to people. And he introduced himself, said, I've been watching your videos for many, many, many years. I've always wanted to be said, we've spoken to each other many times on WhatsApp. I've asked you halakha questions, but I never met you before. And what am I supposed to do now? Now I meet somebody who I've spoken to since 2022. You're not going to give him a hug? You're not going to shake his hand? You're not. What is the feeling that I'm supposed to feel right now? And he's clearly feeling very happy. So we took a selfie and pretended not to smile too much. But there's a conflicting feelings that are happening now in Yerushalayim. You're reading Echa Yashva Badan, Ha'ir Bat Yam, Ha'ita Kalmana. You just read Echa. And we say, how could the city that was so desolate, it used to be full of people. Look how empty she is right now. But I drove back from the Kotel last night at almost 2:00 in the morning. The streets of Yerushalayim are packed with people, and not just on the Tisha B'Av. You go on a regular Thursday night, it's packed. There are clubs open, there are people, there are all kinds of things happening in Yerushalayim. Desolate? It's not desolate. I would love to say that you and I could afford a house in Yerushalayim. You can't. There's not enough room here for the people that are trying to live here. And so you say words, but the words don't feel like they mean what they should mean because we're not in that same era of destruction anymore. On the other side, though, we're still sitting on the floor by the Kotel crying, not because we're lying. There's more that needs to be fixed. Nobody can tell me, even the most messianic of my Jewish brothers and sisters, nobody can tell me the world is perfect right now. Nobody can tell me that this state of Israel is the redemption of the Jewish people. Nobody should lie to me about those things. There are major problems. But those problems our rabbis are telling us, those are problems that we can fix. We're not waiting for someone else to fix them. And so I sat on the floor in the court. I said, Elchanan, as you know, Yochanan was there. He said, you have to focus on this Tisha B'Av, on the things that we can do. I can't fix it. I'm not in the war cabinet of Gaza. I can't tell the Prime Minister of Israel what to do. I'm not the chief of staff of the Israeli military. I'm not the head of, I don't know, whatever Jewish federation you think has power in the world. I'm not the president of the United States of America. I'm none of those things. What I am, I'm a Jewish person who the future of the nation of Israel matters to me tremendously. And I agree that this Tisha B'Av, instead of sitting on the floor and crying and praying on its own, because crying and praying is easy. It's easy to cry and pray. Everybody, ask all of our co-brethren, co-religionists of the Judeo-Christian faith that was fabricated a few years ago. Ask them what they do when something goes wrong in the world, and they say, I'll hold you in my thoughts and my prayers. That's what they'll tell you. Why my thoughts and my prayers? Because their religion requires from them no action whatsoever. Not even when somebody else is starving on the side of the road, I'll pray for you. That's all they can do. We're not from those people. We're from the people that do. And we do and we do and we do. We speak, but only if we're going to do something about it. We don't. God spoke, but something came out of it. The creation of the world came out of it. It's our job to identify the things that we can fix and not sit there helpless and say there are things that we don't know how to do. Look, that's not your job then if you can't fix those things. And so maybe I'll end with you with a midrash that I read last night. After I came from the Kotel, you can't go to sleep after you see 50,000 Jews praying together at the Kotel. And I have my own observations about what the Kotel looks like on Tisha B'Av, and when we hip and skip around the Kotel, what it looks like to the world. But there's a midrash our rabbis tell us. Let me read it to you quickly. Our rabbis say, and I don't have the actual Gemara in front of me, so I'm using a mamlois. Forgive me if the words are not exactly the same as the Talmud is in front of you. In the moment when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, there were groups of Pirchei Kehuna. Who are the Pirchei Kehuna?
Young Kohanim training.
The Kohanim in training, the KITs, and they were the Pirchei Kehuna, are the blossoms of the Kehuna, the flowers of the Kehuna, the young ones. They went al Gag HaEchal, they went up to the roof of the sanctuary. ומפתחות בית המקדש בידיהם, and the keys of the Beit HaMikdash were in their hands. ואמרו, and they said, ריבונו של עולם, master of the world, כיוון שאין לנו זכות להיות גבאים נאמנים בבית המקדש, because we no longer have the merits to be the loyal, faithful guardians of the Beit HaMikdash. כל את המפתחות של בית המקדש. Take back the keys of the Beit HaMikdash. Now, imagine this image for a moment. The Beit HaMikdash is already on fire. And these young Kohanim are climbing up to the roof of the Hechal and saying, God, we don't deserve the keys anymore. Take them back. And the Haggadah tells us, V'zarku ha'maftechot, they threw the keys up into the air. V'yatsa kedmut yad min harakia v'natla ha'maftechot. Again, this is an Haggadah. And an image of a hand came out of heaven and grabbed the keys to the Beit HaMikdash and took them away. V'hem kafzu l'toch ha'esh, and they jumped to their deaths into the fire.
Wow.
And you think of this image, it wasn't suicide. They were dying anyways. They were inside of a building that was on fire. But this whole conversation of take back the keys, we can't afford to be responsible for the Beit HaMikdash anymore. That continues all the way to the end. There's a long conversation after the story. But it says, V'yatzta Shekhinah mi Beit HaMikdash. The Shekhinah decided to leave the Beit HaMikdash. והייתה נודדת ממקום למקום. And she wandered from place to place. כדי שיראו ישראל שהשכינה מסתלקת ויחזרו בתשובה. So the Jewish people could see the Shekhinah as an exile. Shekhinah begaluta, the Kabbalists say this word. The Shekhinah is an exile. And they would do teshuvah. עד שהייתה שכינה שרויה בהר הזיתים. Until the Shekhinah rested in the Mount of Olives. והייתה בת קול יוצאת כל יום ואומרת, and a voice used to come out of heaven and said, שובו בתשובה ואני חוזרת במקומי. Do teshuvah, and I will return to my place. והם לא שמו לב, ולא חזרו בתשובה. The Jewish people didn't pay attention. They did not do teshuvah. And the rest of the story, ונכנס נבוכדנצר, ושרף את בית המקדש, והגלה אותנו מארצנו. And Nebuchadnezzar came, and he burnt the Beit HaMikdash and exiled us from our land. Even in that moment, where the exile was already happening, the Beit HaMikdash was already being destroyed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was waiting to see, will the Jewish people take action? Will they take this into their own hands? And they didn't. They didn't. And because of that, the rest of the destruction was able to happen. When I look at these stories and I talk about the Churban, and I spent hours last night, hours, reading horrible stories of the Jewish people in the first Beit HaMikdash, the Jewish people being massacred in the second Beit HaMikdash, and the Jewish people in Bavel, and the Jewish people all the way through Ashkenaz up until the Holocaust, from the Holocaust, after the Holocaust. You read things and your mind can't comprehend. How could Am Yisrael be butchered mercilessly for 2,000 years? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from us? And sometimes I say we blame HaKadosh Baruch Hu for so much. We blame him for so much. You know, it says in the Musaf prayer, "Mipnei chataenu galinu me'artzenu, v'nitrachaknu me'al admatenu." That because of our sins, we were exiled from our land, and we were distanced from our soil, from our holy earth. Mori Harav Reine Kabbalah Mishkava would quote Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, my wife's grandmother, my father-in-law's mother, was an orphan. Her parents died in Yerushalayim from typhus. And she grew up right next door to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. And Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld on Friday night, when he would bless his children, would also bless my wife's grandmother. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he wrote, "Mipnei chataenu galinu me'artzenu." We were exiled from our land because of our sins. V'nitrachaknu me'al admatenu, but we were distanced from our land, birtzonenu, because of our own choices. We made choices that kept Am Yisrael away. 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago, you and I studied Chacham Fowler's writings on Sephardic Zionist ideals in the 19th century. And over there, we read about all of these Chachamim who understood the concept of Teshuvah today on Tisha B'Av. There's not an individual Teshuvah, but it's a national Teshuvah. The Jewish people must make choices. Where are we going with our lives? What do we want as a nation? Do we belong still in San Diego, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in South Africa, in London, in Canada? Where do we belong there? Or do we have a national teshuvah that requires going home? Come on, I sit here, it's not my first Tisha B'Av away from you. And every time I come back, because I love you more than I love anybody else in the world, so I'm coming back. But at some point in time, we have to all love each other and say, how long are we going to keep doing Tisha B'Av like this? Can't be forever. It can't be. There are other rabbis, they'll lie to you, say, it's okay, we're going to be here. Mashiach will come riding on a magic pony. He's going to hold you by your hand and bring you back on a magic carpet. I would love to be the one who lies to you, but I can't believe in magic. I can only believe in action. And I ask you on this Tisha B'Av, on a personal level, we need to begin to consider what it is that we can do as individuals. What is it that is causing destruction in the world that is in our hands to fix? And on a national level, but we can't stay in San Diego forever. And I'm saying this looking at the bit of class that we just remodeled. I'm saying it looking at I see out of the corner right behind Oren, I see the new dining room, kids room, social hall. We built it. It's okay. We can do even better in Yerushalayim. I'm asking you, it's not a pressure. Not a pressure. But it's a real fun. If there's something Am Yisrael needs to do teshuvah for, how can it be? How can it be that so many of us heard the call of the shofar? We saw that the Kotel was liberated, Har HaBayit already halfway there, and we're still saying, yeah, let's wait till next year in Yerushalayim. And so I'm blessing us all. That this Tisha B'Av, we feel the discomfort of being a little too comfortable. That we stop delegating the problems of Chuban to other people. Don't blame. Last night I was at Sha'ar Yafo, and there was a guy holding a big sign. He was telling us why the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Elchanan, can you tell us what did it say on the sign? What was he screaming in loudspeakers? Go, go, go. Go. Wait, let me think.
The internet.
Because of internet, yeah. Because of internet and smartphones, that is why the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed.
Abba took YouTube.
I took a picture with him on my smartphone, and then somebody told me it's Tisha B'Av, I shouldn't provoke people, and I did teshuvah in the moment. But second, you think the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of internet? Is that meaning it's easy for you who doesn't have the internet to stand in the Sha'ar Yafo and scream at everybody? But how do you think you printed those signs? With what did you print those signs? Please, let's for one moment just be honest with each other. But it's only fascinating to me, where all of these years later, we're still blaming everybody else for why there's a Chuban. Maybe it's time to own up what part of the Chuban we are responsible for. And so I'm blessing us that this Tisha B'Av, doesn't matter what reason the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Yeah, maybe it's not Sinat Chinam. I can get behind the fact that it wasn't one of those things that destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. One thing I can't understand the person who says, but it wasn't me. I'm not responsible for the destiny of the Jewish people. Our rabbis tell us that every generation the Mikdash is not built in their life, it's that generation's fault. It's our job to be proactive, and for everybody that looks different. And when I go from Beit HaKnesset to Beit HaKnesset, I've been here already 2 Shabbatot here. I haven't found a place. My kids have found a place to pray, but I haven't found a place to pray. You know, there's a song you sing on Shabbat, Yonah Matzah Bo Manoach. In Echa, we read last night, Lo Matzah Manoach. She didn't find a place to rest. The dove of Noach, she found a place to rest, but I didn't find a place to rest. I'm in Yerushalayim. I'm surrounded by Batei Knesset, but I sit inside of them and I feel alone because you're not there with me. And I'll tell you that this group of people that I'm looking at, those on the screen and those on the sides of the screen that are hiding, and those that maybe will watch us later on YouTube, I know that in my world, you are the most noble people that I know. You are the people with the most integrity that I've ever had the chance to live with, and that's why I choose to live with you and to be with you and to pray with you and to learn with you, and I know that you put the same trust back in me. And I'm looking at this group of people and I say, without having any Messiah complex, like we're the ones saving the world, but we're the ones saving the world. We need to be the ones who step up to the plate and to pave the way for Am Yisrael and to show, Chevre, it's time for us to take Jewish destiny into our own hands. That's my only prayer for Tisha B'Av. You ended off the Megillah, Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh Yamenu kekeden. All of us said that. Hashem, return us to you and we will return. On this Tisha B'Av, we can put a little bit of responsibility. HaKadosh will return us, watch what we're going to do. And I'll tell you that we need to be like those gatekeepers of the Beit HaMikdash. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we did everything that we could do. At this point, there's nothing more that we can do, so take back your keys. Until we say that we've done everything we can do, God, take back the keys, we're not done working. And I'm certain that this group of people that are here, we haven't done everything that we can do. We've done a lot, but we haven't done everything. So B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach, I hope to see you soon. And I hope to see you soon with a recommitted strength to make sure that Tisha B'Av is going to be the last one. That this Tisha B'Av is the last one that looks like this, because we're committing ourselves to doing what we can do. And B'ezrat Hashem, when we throw back the keys, not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take them away. He'll hand them right back to us and say, now it's time. Anavim, Higia Zeman Gulatchem. Humble ones, the time of your redemption has come. And I bless us only in the Shana Abba Yerushalayim HaBenuya, that we should merit next year to be all together in the rebuilt city of Yerushalayim. Thank you so much for learning with me tonight. Tizkun mitzvot.